I want to share with you 4 ways that I am practicing my own spirituality this week. I invite you into this process as well. Maybe mine don't fit you as well, or maybe one of them fits better than others. Take this list as just a sort of inspiration, a list of ideas. If you want to bounce some others around, send me an email. I'd be happy to talk more. The first is pretty simple. It's decluttering my spice drawer. Yeah, it's okay. It's tiny, right? You haven't seen the mess in my spice drawer to think it's tiny or not. I'm a little late to the party. Marie Kondo has been around for a long time. Her Netflix special has been on Netflix for a long time. And again, just always late to the party. But this December and January, I've just kind of stumbled into this practice. I found a closet, looked at it and said, yep, it's time to clean that one. Then I found a cabinet, said, yep, time to clean that one. And finally, it came time for the spice drawer. And our spice drawer is overflowing with spices. But as I looked a little bit more closely, I noticed that some of those spices had been in Hannah and my family since before we were married. And we've been married coming up on 11 years here. So those are some old enough spices. I had some conversation with folks who had been married 50 years. And she was pretty sure that there were spices in her drawer that were around as long as their marriage too. So I start cleaning out the spices. I think I found even some mustard seed, but have yet to have a recipe that actually calls for mustard seed rather than mustard powder. Tiny little seed that it was. Start cleaning them, organizing them. We start actually shopping for new spices that will freshen up our dishes. And it's amazing how turning a little bit of chaos in your life into something that you can live with will actually change your perspective on your influence, not only in your home, but in your world. Because if I can improve just this one little drawer, what can I do in my community, in my neighborhood, in my family, at work, and beyond? So that's one thing, is decluttering. If you want to join the party, Hannah is kind enough to always post the click tap to tidy on her social media. And it shows off my good work, but the tap really doesn't show the sweat of crawling underneath the cabinet and trying to clean all of these things. But decluttering is number 1. Number 2 is I'm going to pray some words. The words that I shared at the beginning of this sermon. And I invite you to pray them this week. I'm going to pray them every day. It's a very short prayer, a very short song. I was taught it when I was really young, but it's simple. It goes like this. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. I invite you into that prayer this week, because we do believe in this Spirit of our living God, who will fall fresh not just on the ancient prophets, not just on the writers of the Bible that we read from, but on us, in our lives. The Spirit of the living God, the one who spun the stars into creation, is just one deep breath away. The Spirit of the living God dwells in you and in me. So if we ask of the Lord, melt me. Melt away the imperfections. Melt away the ideologies. Melt away my complicity in the structures that give me advantage over other people. Melt away the divisions that we set up on race or creed or sexual orientation. Melt it away. Mold me in the image of the living God. The image of the God who loves each and every one of us, who calls us into being, who calls us into purpose. Fill us, fill me. This week I was filled, not of my own doing, not of any prayer or spiritual practice or decluttering, but I was filled by the people around me. I had deep blessings to listen as we recorded a Martin Luther King Jr. service that will debut on the Church Anew channel in a couple of weeks. I was filled by conversations with mission partners. I was filled with getting outside and sliding down a mountain as fast as I can with skis on my feet. I was filled this week. And then use me. Our God will put us to work, my friends. If we lean in on the edge of our toes rather than back on our heels, our God will put us to work. Our God will call us into conversations that we aren't ready for. Our God will blaze a path of community, of fellowship, of beloved wholeness that will transform this world little by little. I believe it. Amen. So I'll declutter, I'll pray these words of this song, I'll listen. Number 3. This week I listened carefully to a couple of our mission partners at Zion Baptist Church in North Minneapolis. Pastor Brian Herron is the pastor of this local congregation. And Deidre Slack is a leader of a learning pod that St. Andrew has helped to facilitate. It was our holiday giving that helped make this learning pod possible. They took us on an amazing tour of these kids gathered with masks on and technology in front of them, but a community with meals and support and belonging, because that is what has gone missing in their lives. But even more, in conversation afterward with Deidre and Pastor Herron, we heard firsthand, and I heard firsthand how much privilege I hold. I heard stories of facing white supremacy head on. I heard stories of receiving violence. And I listened, and I didn't turn away. I'm going to keep listening. It's hard work, but we're each called into it in our own ways. I'm also going to listen on the Church Anew blog, where we invited leaders, theologians, authors, pastors from all over the country to share perspective and insight into how we can be the church today after what happened this Epiphany Day, January the 6th, in our nation's capital. You can read more on the Church Anew site. So I'll declutter, I'll pray, I'll listen, and finally, I'm going to renounce. It's a weird, churchy sort of word, but I really like weird, churchy sorts of words. In our baptism liturgy, and when we confirm our kids in 9th grade, we invite them to renounce things. We ask 3 questions. Do you renounce the forces of the devil that rebel against God? Do you renounce the ways of this world that fight against God? And do you renounce all that separates us from God? When I invite older kids, teenagers into this baptismal promise, I invite them to renounce them forcefully, with conviction, loud. We practice it with fervor. But I'm going to write a few things this week that I renounce. Things that I separate myself from. Like I said, this is my problem. This is our problem as well. So declutter, pray, listen, renounce. Maybe you'd add a few practices, or maybe one of them fits better for you. But I invite you this week to dig into that spiritual ground, to take that little mustard seed of faith. It isn't anything that isn't given free of charge. It's yours for the taking. It's right in you. Just give it a little attention, a little practice, a little nurture this week.